What would happen if a top 5 light heavyweight MMA fighter, in his athletic prime and in fight camp, got into a no-rules fight with a guy who wrestled at 138 pounds in high school? I used to bet on fights from time to time, and to me, the answer is obvious. Clearly, the huge fighter will finish the little wrestler easily. I'd be surprised if it lasted more than 30 seconds. So when a former high school wrestler named Luke Haberman broke into Anthony Smith's house at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would have expected an easy fight for Smith. But that's not what happened.
I don't know. I'm not lying when I said it was one of the toughest fights I've ever had in my whole life.
The fight lasted around 5 minutes, with Smith hitting Haberman as hard as he could. But when the police showed up, Haberman was able to walk away under his own power.
They took him, the ambulance took him to the hospital.
Okay. So he was roughed up that badly?
Yeah. But he walked out of here, which is insane to me.
Smith could not stop him, and even admitted he didn't know how much longer he could keep it up.
Thank God, holy crap, I made it. Because I wasn't sure, it felt like we were fighting for a lifetime, but it turns out it's maybe right at 6 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. And I remember thinking halfway through, man, I don't know how long I can do this. He might outlast me. And not to mention, I'm in a training camp, I'm about to fight, so it's not like I'm out of shape. And he wasn't slowing down, so the cops come, and I was just so relieved, and then immediately followed was just anger.
How was this possible? It turned out that Haberman was completely out of his mind and probably on drugs, screaming like a psycho while trying to get into houses and cars. But are drugs and madness enough to explain what happened? Is being out of your mind really that powerful? We know from history that there exist altered states of consciousness that can dramatically increase one's combat ability. There was an Indo-European warrior tradition spanning 3,000 years, from ancient Mesopotamia to medieval northern Europe, that harnessed this state of battle fury and turned it into an irresistible force. The most well-documented of these Indo-European mad warriors were the Norse berserkers, so that is what frenzied fighters are often called, even when they are from other cultures. This news story serves as a reference point, an instructive example of just how powerful these warriors might have been. And it shows us what going berserk looks like better than Hollywood ever could. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is as good as you're going to get from a fictional film. Jackman is considered one of the best superhero actors, and Wolverine is Hollywood's most famous berserker. But his depiction of going berserk pales in comparison to the real thing. After seeing and hearing the scream, it suddenly seems more plausible that this freak could fight hand-to-hand with a UFC superstar, even if it doesn't make any rational sense. There's a sort of instinctual recognition that a man in the grip of madness is not to be messed with. But the rational mind can't comprehend this, so when the news broke, the internet MMA nerds were very confused. The cognitive dissonance caused people to lie to themselves, automatically. You can't read a discussion of this story anywhere without finding multiple claims that Haberman was a state champion, or college wrestler, or even a Division I college wrestler. In reality, he didn't even win a district title in high school, and he didn't wrestle in college. He only won one match at the state tournament and was eliminated after 3 matches. People also claim that Smith held back on purpose. This is also a lie. Smith was trying as hard as he could to put him out.
I used every skill I have. It's just the wrestling part of it to take him down, a lot of the jiu-jitsu stuff to hold him there, and obviously the MMA experience to strike him, at the most opportune times as hard as I could. Not that those did a whole lot of good, but I'm assuming that those definitely made a difference. No normal human is able to fight like that. I'm by no means the baddest dude on the planet, but he's a regular Joe, and I had a hard time dealing with him. And he took everything that gave him. You know, like every punch, every knee, every elbow. He took every single one of them and never slowed down and kept fighting me. You know, he's doing everything he could to get away.
According to former UFC middleweight Kris, Smith was hitting Haberman so hard with Pride-style knees that his knee was swollen after the fight. Pride-style knees are knees to the head of a pinned opponent. This is the weirdest part of the story. It's not hard to accept that this kind of rage could increase strength and stamina, because hysterical strength is a well-documented phenomenon. But Haberman's invulnerability to head trauma is surprising. A strong blow to the head seems like it should cause unconsciousness regardless of mental state. More like a physical thing, like getting a cut, than a mental thing like pain. But is it? Scientists don't understand how consciousness arises from the physical actions of the brain, so they don't understand exactly what causes knockouts, which are a loss of consciousness. There are several hypotheses. There have been cases where people wake from comas under surprising circumstances.
You have no reason to think any amount of drugs will wake a man from a coma.
The amount of amphetamines alone would be dangerous.
I want your ass in my office.
God, I'm starving.
So it's not that implausible that being in a hyper-aroused state could allow someone to maintain consciousness where he would otherwise be knocked out. Another thing you'll often hear is, why didn't he just choke him out?
Who continued to fight him. Why didn't he just choke him unconscious?
That's a legit point. Why won't you just choke the fuck out of him?
Yeah,
This guy is telling Smith, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, that he needs to go back and learn BJJ. But the thing is, Smith couldn't control Haberman. He was too strong.
He's not very big. He's like 165 or 170 pounds, but he's super strong. I just was having a really hard time controlling him. Trying to get a hold of his hands and you know, trying to knock him out to get him to stop, and he just never did.
It's basic BJJ. You have to control your opponent before you submit him. Haberman could not be controlled, so he couldn't be submitted. The real reason that Haberman was able to fight with Smith is not because he was some kind of wrestling prodigy, and it wasn't because Smith held back, or because Smith doesn't know BJJ, or because Smith is a pussy. The real reason that Haberman withstood the MMA superstar is that there are animalistic states of mind that allow the man who wields them to become too furious to feel pain, too strong to submit, too frenzied to knock out, and too enduring to outlast.
So he didn't feel like he was human. It was odd. He wasn't responding the way that typically people do, whether it's submissions or pain or strikes. So he didn't respond to anything.
In the Indo-European world, in ancient times, it was the duty of every young warrior to become acquainted with these animalistic states of mind as he raided in the wild, in a liminal state between beast and man. He would emerge from this state to be initiated into manhood, but some men liked living on the edge, so they stayed there and consecrated their lives to the god of battle fury and the pursuit of imperishable fame. These were the berserkers. Berserk fighting styles slowly died away as men became more civilized and created disciplined professional armies. The Greeks and the Romans had their frenzied fighters, but eventually lost even the memory of them, considering battle fury to be a mark of barbarism. In The Lord of the Rings, Rohan was supposed to be civilized enough to be beyond its berserker stage, which is why Tolkien wrote of Theoden, the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. So it's not surprising that our civilized modern world does not understand berserker rage, and that the last vestiges of it occur only among those who live on the edge, the madmen and the addicts. My next video in this berserker series will probably deal with how the youth warband, the lifelong consecrated warrior, and initiation are related.